Hello, everyone. Welcome to this stream again and to the channel. We've got Galbraith in the house. Hi, Galbraith. How are you?
Hey, Frizz. Yes, I'm good. Had a bit of a cough recently, but I'm over that now. But if I do have to mute my mic at some point because I inexplicably need to start kind of retching my guts up, then then I'll apologize now in advance for that. But yeah, no, I'm doing well, doing well.
Good to see, good to finally have you. So everybody, Galbraith, if you don't know by now, he is the one with the Broadsider, Cryptopunk Broadsider, which it was based off of. So I'm gonna quickly just share my screen and show you that as an intro, and just quickly show you that. So um, yeah, this is OpenSea, and obviously this is Broadside. But yeah, this beautiful piece of work here is what they used to collab together, and it's interesting to me when I look down the traits. It's got it's got the hashtag 5046, which is the number of your CryptoPunk, right?
Yes.
Um, and then it's got like, yeah, like all these unique one of one traits, um which is great. And then I guess the model before was, which with each sale of this, hopefully you'll get you get sent some ETH um on top, which is like a brand new licensing model. So yeah, no, do you want to just talk a bit more about and I know it's unfair to just jump straight onto your token.
No,
but I
no,
guess
that's
but I
fine.
guess this is your alter ego, right? More like in Broadside anyway, one of your alter egos. But is there something that you want to talk to us about with when you was creating this? How did you get approached?
Yeah, sure.
Um
So I mean, like, Vector Meldrew and I originally met in London about in 2021, I think it was. NFT London. It was a small event that had been hosted by a few people um, as a kind of an answer to the fact that at that time we weren't allowed to travel to America from the UK because of COVID, and NFT NYC was happening, and there was a lot of people in the UK who were like, "Well, this sucks. We can't get over there. It's because of the flight restrictions. So let's put a little event on ourselves."
mm,
And it was a very quick turnaround, but they did an amazing job. There was, uh, a reasonably small venue, but they managed to cram in quite a few people, a couple of hundred, from what I
mm,
remember. And yeah, it was great. There was a little gallery in a basement, and then a gallery upstairs, and then basically for 2 days straight, just a selection of talks and kind of panels from
mm,
various people in the UK, artists, as well as like entrepreneurs and developers, coders, all sorts of people.
mm.
Now, I got asked to talk on the last panel on the last day, which was of which the question was what is the future of NFTs, or what is the future of Web3? Um, at the
Wow. And sorry, how
t-
long ago was this again? How long was it?
This was October 2021.
Okay, not too
So
long ago, but a
about
long time in the crypto world, I guess. But yeah.
yeah, massive, very, very long time in the crypto world, and that's like centuries in the crypto world, man. Nearly 2 years, well, not nearly 2 years, nearly a year and a half, basically now.
Mm,
And speaking at this event was like really a pivotal moment for me. It's actually still the video that I have on my pinned tweet on my Twitter profile is me talking there and kind of answering this question, what is the future of NFTs, and trying to give a bit of an answer to this question, what is the future of NFTs? And I got a little bit how do I say impassioned during my answer. I was quite vocal. I was using a few curse words here and there, but I'd kind of, I'd been put on this panel with some really amazing other guys who were I guess slightly more involved in the development and developer slash token slash coder side of things.
Mm,
And they, when asked about what the future of NFTs were or was or what or is, they were more talking about, okay, so smart contracts and this and that, and then it came to me, and I'm a writer and a sometimes kind of spoken word performer and an artist collaborator and all of this sort of stuff. And so they asked me, and I was like, right, I need to bring some passion to this. Not to say that the other guys weren't passionate at all, but yeah, I kind of had a moment and I took it. So I really kind of got involved with that. And then afterwards, Vector came up and approached me and was like, "Oh, dude, that was." I hope he won't mind me saying, but he was like, "That was fucking cool." Um, he was like, "I really like what you had to say, and it really, really resonates with me."
has he been licking
And
toads? Do you know?
uh,
It,
he was like really he was like, "Shit, man, what you
mm,
said, it like it made me realize why we're here and what we're doing." And
mm,
Vector had come from this really interesting background of like as we are aware as broadsiders of like pirate radio and um being somewhat of a subversive kind of creative himself, had this
mm,
really interesting background, and I think was exploring Web3 himself and NFTs as a way to, engage in a new channel for digital art, and has been involved in it for a while. Was involved with it and for a while before this talk or this NFT conference, and yeah, so then we kind of just hit it off. Like, I think
mm,
he's a really, really cool guy, very, very talented, very funny as well. He makes me laugh, which is always a good sign when you can hang out with somebody and they just make you giggle.
mm,
So, and
mm,
we've met consequently, like not a huge amount, but a couple of times in real life since then. And yeah, he's just an awesome dude. So when he came to me with the idea of what Broadside was, I was like, "Oh shit, this looks cool. This looks really cool to begin with, because obviously Vector is an extremely talented artist."
mm,
And then secondly, I was like, "This looks really well put together, actually," because at the time, we were past the main bull run, but we were still kind of in a space where a lot of rug pulls were happening, a lot of shit kind of projects were happening,
mm,
and it was kind of frustrating. But I saw what they were doing with Broadside in some initial, like Vector sent me a very early trailer preview, and I was like, shit, this looks very cool.
mm,
And I was like, I think I'd have to double check my Twitter messages really, because I can't remember exactly who approached who. I think it might have been me asking, "What are you doing with this? Like, this looks really, really interesting. What's going on?"
mm,
And he was like, "Oh yeah, well we've got this and we're doing this, and we've got Matt on board, and he comes from this background, and he's done this, and he's going to be a writer, and he's got." And I was like, "What do you mean? Like, wait, what? Like?" And I was going in my own head. I was like, this sounds amazing. Like, they're going to be like releasing a novel via like NFTs, and I like, how do I get involved with this? Like, how do
mm,
I be a part of this? Because this is something that excuse me, is going to be really big for the space, and it's going to be a very high end gold standard sort of project that's going to be very good for the space, and also really kind of hopefully bring the idea of storytelling NFTs and literature NFTs to a much wider audience.
mm,
So me, with my background in literature NFTs and storytelling NFTs, and as a writer, I really wanted to try and be involved with it. So that's kind of where it started, and from that point on, Vector was like, you're because Yuga Labs bought out Cryptopunks, and they made the license CCO. Maybe we can do something with your punk and have it like as a one of one character within the within the drop. And if you want to license that to us, you can get like royalties from resales and all of this sort of stuff. And I was like, that sounds
mm,
like an awesome idea, actually. Let's experiment with that and let's see what we can do with that. So that's how that came up. And then Vector was like, I'll create the design, and it can be a one of one, and then once we drop, and whoever mints that, if they resell it, because it's going to be one of the rarest broadsiders within the project, then you get all the royalties, and you'll get them in like perpetuity. And I'm like, okay, that sounds fucking cool, let's do it. So, but it wasn't necessarily to do with the fact that I was going to get royalties off this. I mean, I always knew that the royalties were only going to be a certain amount of percentage anyway.
Mm.
And it wasn't necessarily about, oh, I'm going to make like loads of ETH off this. It was more,
It's a new
this
structure, right? It's a
this is
new,
something new and
yeah.
interesting to do with
Mm.
my punk.
Mm.
Not only to do with my punk, but also to like add legacy to my punk, and add lore to my punk, add story to my punk. And as a storyteller, that's particularly interesting to me. And I continue to do that with my own project called Punk Fiction, where I bring my punk to life, working with collaborating with artists and musicians.
Mm.
But the other side of that as well was then when Vector said, well, we've got your punk involved, so is there a way for like for you to for you to do something else with us, like maybe some, like, let's get you doing some writing. And he was like, I'm going to go away and have a chat with Matt and see what we can think. And they came back a couple of days later, and to their credit, it was a really awesome idea. It was like,
Mm.
why don't you just write the foreword for us? Like,
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
this could be really interesting, because you could write the foreword for us. We get a little, we get an extra crypto writer, or Web3 writer involved in the project, and you get to work with us. And I was like, perfect. Sounds awesome. So I got an advanced copy of the first chapter, or first episode of Broadside. I
Mm.
got a load of background information from Matt and Vector, and I had a couple of calls with them to kind of pick their brains about what they were doing, and the kind of relationship with solarpunk and decentralization, and all of that sort of stuff that they wanted to achieve with the project, and in a wider scope within the space, and yeah, how they wanted to be disruptive and innovative and decentralized, and all the rest of it, all of those other superlatives. So I went about trying to kind of put that into 400 or 500 words, whatever it ended up at, and just saying something about where we are now as a on quite a grand scale, I guess, as the human race, and how we're at quite a pivotal moment in human history for multiple reasons, from environmental change and climate change through to radical politics, and how social media affects everything these days, artificial intelligence, the list goes on. And we're in this world now where technology is modern technology is completely pervasive. You have like a smartphone in your hand, which now, hooked up to ChatGPT, can tell you pretty much
Mm.
anything that you want about anything that you can possibly ask. Um, and but at the same time, as I had previously talked about when I was at the NFT conference back in 2021, there is a big chance that we can fuck things up, and humans have quite the propensity to fuck things up, unfortunately. Probably better at fucking things up than than doing well. So yeah, I kind of wanted to dive into what Broadside kind of meant in more of an existential fashion, rather than just going,
Yeah.
oh look, this is a cool new PFP project.
Mm.
From my perspective, I was a bit like, no, fuck that. This isn't just another like crazy zebras or whatever. This is like a
Animals pump
yeah,
and
just
dump.
some
Mm.
this was like some really, really smart guys, some very, very talented artists, coming together to create something which is could be potentially a bit of a movement, and is a movement now. The project sold out. The foreword got minted like 6,000 times or something like this, which is I was just blown away by. It was. It's been a massive success for them, and long may it continue. They're doing amazing things. So yeah, I was really humbled to be kind of asked in the first place to do something like that, and I've had an amazing experience with them so far. So yeah, I know I've been chatting a little for quite a while about that, but hopefully that'll give everybody, who's interested in that side of things, a,
Mm.
bit of an insight to how that came together and why. And it was a lot to do with the history that Vector and I had, and trying to do something different and innovative within the space. Where there is the opportunity to do something different and innovative rather than just another 10,000 PFP drop of a bunch of kind of weird looking animals or whatever. Hey, and no offense to anybody that has got a weird looking animal as a PFP, but it was it was an interesting moment that I really wanted to be a part of.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's really exciting to like dive into those concepts because there's a lot packed into that forward. There's a lot of thought in each paragraph, and a lot of like cyberpunk sci-fi themes that i- again there's this one that stuck out to me, which was um probably share it now. To me, that stuck out to me. One of them was this one. As Gaiman said, uh, is it Gaiman? Game,
Yeah, Neil Gaiman. Yeah.
Gaiman. SF science fiction is a difficult and transient literature at the best of times, ultimately problematic. It asks us to look into the future, yet dates quicker than any other type of fiction. That just blew me away. First time I've read that, but for
Mm.
me, that yeah. What does that mean to you? I mean, because
Well, it's fascinating to try and pull that apart because it's very true. You can write a piece of sci-fi which you think can be looking hundreds of years into the future, and then within um, less than 10 years, sometimes within months, depending on what people are developing at the time, the all of a sudden the piece of literature that you've written about a speculative future that might exist decades or centuries hence is nonsense because there's been a new technological update which kind of eradicates that. So it's like very, very future kind of leaning sci-fi from even 20, 30 years ago now is largely redundant because people at the time didn't necessarily think of how pervasive mobile phones would be, or for our American friends, cell phones. The ability to have essentially this unit in your hand, which again, like I just mentioned, kind of can answer pretty much any question you could ever put to it, apart from
mm,
the very metaphysical sort of existential
yeah,
questions about the meaning of life. But even then, you can ask ChatGTP about that sort of stuff, and it'll give you a load of answers. So it's writing sci-fi is amazing. And to give a bit of context, I've been writing sci-fi for nearly 20 years now, I would say. I started off as a music journalist and moved into fiction writing when I was in my early
mm,
20s, and I had my first novel released, which was a science fiction novel in 2009, and that was part of a collaborative media project. That's actually the book behind me there, the orange and black thing there.
hmm.
Um,
You can grab it if you want. Oh, okay. If maybe it's too far,
yeah,
maybe like
it's
just
a little far for me. Just I might fall off my chair if I lean back to try and
maybe
grab
it's
that, which is slightly
yeah.
being slightly embarrassing. But yeah, no, like it's so I've been writing sci-fi for a long time. I've been reading sci-fi my entire life, and I've been a science fiction fan my entire life since I was a very young child. My first kind of cartoons and TV shows as like a really young kid at like 4 or 5 years old, were all sci-fi themed about like going to the moon and various other stuff. So pretty much, yeah, ever since I was able to walk and talk, I've been into this sort of stuff for whatever reason. Never quite been able to figure that out myself, but maybe it's an interest in the unknown and the unknowable is something that's always kind of quizzed me and kind of given and set my mind kind of racing. So sci-fi really helps me do that. But at the same time, like I said, you can write this science fiction work that at the time seems really futuristic, and then you read it a couple of years later, and it sounds um, stupid, really, for want of a better word.
Mm.
So it is a pretty difficult road to tread, which ultimately, as a writer and as a science fiction writer, makes you think quite hard about not necessarily focusing on the technology that you want to um, kind of talk about in a manuscript, or the technology that you think might exist 50, 100, 150 years in the future. Sci-fi isn't necessarily about the technology in itself. It's about the people and how the people react to the potential of this technology. So
Mm.
even if the technology that you write about is redundant very quickly, or made redundant very quickly by the advances of humanity in real life, if you've told a good story, and if you have meaningful and purposeful characters, and you have good narrative and good storyline and good plot, then it doesn't matter about what the technology is, because you can, as a reader and as a human, relate to it. And this is why Philip K. Dick was very good, because he didn't really write heroes. He put normal humans in very weird futuristic scenarios. And a lot of the sci-fi that he wrote was quite prophetic, but a lot of the sci-fi that he wrote was completely bonkers as well. But even the bonkers stuff you can relate to, because it's very, everyman sort of stuff. And I think this is the amazing thing, again, coming back to the Broadside stuff
Mm.
and what Broadside are doing, because they're taking the decentralization, Web3, NFT, blockchain technology that we've got today, putting it in a slightly near future scenario or
Mm.
setting, and seeing what a group of characters will do with this technology in a near future. And they're combining that with this genre of sci-fi called solarpunk, which is a bit of a derivative from cyberpunk, which is one of the original kind of like punk kind of genres that has birthed like steampunk and various other stuff.
Tell
And
me about that. Tell me about solarpunk. How does it? How
well,
is it? Tell me about the different punks actually, like different streams, like because that to me is
yeah,
kind
I
of
mean,
interesting.
my background is in cyberpunk, particularly because I just got fascinated with that when I was a younger man or a teenager, with the likes of,
How would you define that then? Because again, these are like streams of
well, the the typical definition of cyberpunk is high tech, low life. So it's set usually in scenarios and futures that are very, very high tech. But
say
unfortunately,
Blade
yeah,
Runner is a
like
good.
Blade Runner. Yeah, like Blade Runner, for instance. But the technology is often inaccessible to a lot of people. And there is vast, usually in cyberpunk, there is vast, economic and um, uh, socioeconomic differences. There are large gaps in society between the haves and the have-nots in cyberpunk worlds, and the
Mm.
cyberpunk worlds are usually ran by big corporate entities, um, which originally inspired which were originally inspired from Japan in the 80s.
Mm.
William Gibson, one of the early cyberpunk writers, took a lot of inspiration from 80s and 90s Japan,
Mm.
um, where a big corporation is typically called a zaibatsu. And a zaibatsu is a corporation that's big enough to influence the government, basically. And so it's this idea of this vast kind of wealth of technology that's available to humanity, but the fact is that a lot of people can't get access to this stuff. It's the haves and the have-nots, and the interesting stories come from the people who can't get access to this technology trying to get access to this technology. And
Like Altered Carbon as well, like recently, right? In Netflix,
sorry.
like Altered Carbon. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah,
It's kind of
Altered
similar.
Carbon is a very,
Yeah.
very, yeah, nice take on the cyberpunk future. I've got my book collection over there. I've got the trilogy, the Altered Carbon trilogy, and a few other books
Oh
by
no, another
the author.
book. Another book to get lost on. Yeah.
So I mean, I would, it'd be, you'd be hard pressed to mention like a cyberpunk series or show or movie that wasn't originally based on a cyberpunk book or drew inspiration from a cyberpunk book. But yeah,
Where did
then
it all start? Do you know? Like,
this, I mean, the history of it is really interesting, and it's been debated quite a bit. There
mm,
is. Uh, so there's a book by an author, a very famous science fiction master called Alfred Bester, and he wrote a book called "The Star's My Destination," also known as Tiger Tiger, and that was about a character called Gully Foyle, who kind of wakes up inside a spaceship, and he has been left for dead. And then he essentially spends the rest of the book trying to seek revenge on the people who left him to die in this broken down, like blown up spaceship. So it's really a futuristic and sci-fi retelling of the Count of Monte Cristo. But
mm,
during the course of that book, you come across how major corporations have essentially taken over Earth and are really the people that are in charge on Earth rather than governments. And so it is kind of classed by some as the archetypal cyberpunk book, but
mm.
that was
He was in space though, right? So that's the thing.
well, no, but he came back down to Earth to seek
Oh,
his
he did.
revenge on the
He
people
did. Okay.
that he was trying to seek
Oh,
revenge on.
so
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. It's like the
but he
cyberpunk world, anyway. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So that Earth was this planet run by corporations rather than
Mm.
governments, and that was kind of seen as
You
like an
know,
archetypal cyberpunk book. But then really the 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 book that most people agree on really kind of helped solidify the idea of what cyberpunk was and is a book by an author called William Gibson called Neuromancer, and Neuromancer is the book that coins the term cyberspace, and is really the book that the Matrix is very loosely based on, and is part of a
mm.
trilogy called the
Oh, look,
Sprawl trilogy. So
he
it's
is plugged in, like as well. Right. Yeah.
so yeah, the neuro. If you wanted to start with cyberpunk, then Neuromancer by William Gibson is the place to begin.
Wow. Well, that's just amazing. And then where do I go? Because like for example, like we're seeing, well, again, right? So I'm very big on June, but then again, I think that's just I'm on the seventh audiobook at the moment. But I
Oh
think
wow.
that's yeah, but I think that's not even that's I would think that that's not even focused centrally on one Earth. That's like anyway. Where do I go from here? Because we can get lost quite quickly. So you said
Yeah.
you said other derivatives, right? So let's have a look. So there's cyberpunk, and then how does solarpunk fit into that? Then where
Well,
did
I
you
guess
go?
like I did a little bit of reading up on solarpunk. It's not something that has a lot of literature based around it at the moment. It is still quite a new and fresh sort of genre,
This like
but
is this to do with the energy, right? Kind of
but
thing, you
yeah,
know.
from what I understand, and maybe Vector or somebody else might have to correct me, but from my take on solarpunk, it's the idea that through the advancements in solar technology,
Yeah.
the energy is then able, there is then an energy abundance, and
Mm,
through the advancements of solar technology, it should essentially mean that energy isn't, there shouldn't be any energy restrictions, and energy is not something that's like commodified as it is today and you have to pay huge bills for and various other things. It's something that should be open and free to allow humans to have the best possible life that they can. And I, again, from what I understand with the Broadside book and the episodes that they're releasing, is that it's kind of set in this solar punk world where there is this technology that's available to humanity to facilitate amazing things and a very, very high standard of life.
Mm.
But through certain failings within that, kind of world by the government or other corporations, that technology is actually only accessible to quite a limited amount of people.
Mm.
So the lead protagonists and the characters in
Yeah.
Broadside are,
So Prota is controlling the energy basically.
yeah, and the lead characters are really trying to fight for a freer and better future,
Mm.
and allow,
Energy is a human right.
exactly, yeah, and
Mm.
that's not even just like a fictional kind of tagline. That is something that is and should be a reality. But unfortunately, in the world that we live in at the moment, it's quite opposite from that. And again, in the book, the interesting slant is that there is this corporation which is controlling this technology that should
Prota.
facilitate
Mm.
a much better kind of standard of living for people, but unfortunately is actually used as a control mechanism.
And they're using 3D base as also one of the methods to um yeah, to help fight that battle against Prota. Um,
Yeah.
and they talked about 3D base being like some sort of weapon anyway right now, like not 3D base per se, but like sonar frequencies. No, like just different concepts like that.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting. Okay, so that becomes a derivative from cyberpunk because I guess we're in that futuristic state. There's everything there, like the 3D printing, and then like like what's interesting to me is that Web3 concept again that I'm gonna now kind of open up.
Yeah.
Um, so what is Web3 to you, and how did you, as a science fiction writer, how did you was it a natural transition for you as technology progressed? Because again, I'm gonna like touch on something here where I was always like technology kind of ahead. Like when I was a kid, like when the first computers came out, like I was up there, man. Like I was down in the computer cafes playing Counter Strike, and then I was always just like like what can I do to push my computer? Where can we go? And when the internet came, like you had to dial up and everything. But what really took me aside was NFTs and crypto. That to me was like, I remember, right? So, because Counter Strike was a game, and I said to myself, if I was 13, like again, if I was born now, I was 12, or if I was like 7 or something, and I was clicking around, I would be probably like one of these new careers that come out, the esports, right? The esports
Mm.
industry. I would have been there, man. And but I was born too early, yeah, in my 30s, so yeah, I was born too early, and it's funny how I faded it. I said, I remember when skins came out for the game, I was like, why the fuck would I buy something digital? Like, why would I
Mm.
put real life money? Because I always saw it like I come to the computer to escape, like, to kind of play
Mm.
the game, forget about real life. This isn't real life. Why would I put real life money into a game? And lo and behold, that 50p sticker right now is about $30,000.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's
and
been an
it
interesting journey.
and this is one of those things like is web from my definition in this romanticized thing that reviews talked about was um web3 is like a romanticized concept that bring marries crypto nfts and the next phase of when you call the companies living in web 2 like web3 is that decentralized platform where it poses also like pros and cons. But what is it to you, man? Because obviously that's where we are. I come from big
Yeah.
IP NFTs. That's how I got introduced to to Matt, because Matt worked in DC at the time, and now he's
Mm.
doing Broadside, like full CCO, full like we're full like fully into the big bad world of Web3, right? So what is it to you? How did you as a writer fall into it? And what is your definition of it? Go.
Yeah, so I mean, like, I got it. I can go way back because I again, similarly like yourself, I've always been technology obsessed, an early adopter, a gadget kind of freak, whatever you want to call it. I When I was a kid, if something, you didn't have a lot of money, but if there was a new gadget or games console or whatever, you could guarantee that I'd be like tugging at my parents' kind of coat saying, "Oh, can we have this?" And like, I think my first console was a NES, Nintendo Entertainment System, back in the must have been the 80s, and then we had like a SNES and a Mega Drive and various other stuff. And then I got my first PC when I was must have been 13, so 1996, I think that must have been. And then I got my first modem a couple of years later in 97, 98, and that was like a 14.4K modem dial up. And
Was
I st-
pirating must have been there already, because I remember downloading some
very
MP3.
early. Yeah, yeah,
MP3s
yeah.
were there, man. Like that was the main perks, right? You could buy a CD or a tape, or you could download an MP3
Well, that
somewhere else. Like
Well, that was the thing because honestly, like I as soon as Napster came out, I was on Napster, and we know that Matt comes from background
mm,
in torrenting as well,
torrent, BitTorrent,
I
yep.
at BitTorrent, and I used to do a lot of torrenting as a kid, as everybody did.
Mm.
It was a really interesting time, but the problem was, to get one 4 megabyte MP3 file on my 14.4K modem took maybe 8 or 9 hours.
That's funny,
uh,
man. And that's
and
probably what you're on right now with 2 bars in your thing right now.
I know, yeah, my internet today sucks. So yeah, but no, it's like, and of course on the old dial-up modem, we only had one phone line in the house, so I could only use the phone line. If I used the phone line, then my parents couldn't use the phone line,
Mm,
and they didn't have mobile phones. Nobody had. It was before everybody had mobile phones, or mobile phones were pervasive at least anyway.
mm.
And so if I wanted to be on the internet, and when I got my 56K modem, I started playing games like Team Fortress Classic and
Oh, I
CS.
remember that. Team
Even before,
Fortress. It's funny.
even,
Because that
even
was
be-
bundled, right? That was bundled. That was pre-installed. Team Fortress and Counter Strike, right? That was bundled
Counter
together.
Strike and TFC back in the day, man. Like
That was that was bundled together.
yeah, I was in a clan. I was in a gaming clan, and I used to go to LAN events and all sorts. I was a nerd. I was a nerd all the way through growing up. I was a nerd. I was into heavy metal, and I was a nerd. So it's like quite kind of like it
Mm.
clashed a little bit. It was quite funny. I had this super long black hair and like undercut, and was a bit of a rebel. But then I'd be like playing my nerdy games. Um,
That was just the
so
front. That was the front when you go out, really.
so it was, yeah, it's an interesting time, but that was like, so I'm old enough, and I was an early enough adopter to have gone through so far all three phases of what you call the world wide web, or the internet. So there's like web 1, which was just websites essentially, and looking and clicking around on websites. Oh, the Encyclopedia Britannica has a website. I can look things up on that without having to own 50 volumes of books, or like hundreds of CDs. I can just go on at any time and look up all of this stuff. This is amazing.
Man,
Very early.
I remember encyclopedias, like, because yeah, man, they were like pastime reading for me.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then,
exactly. And then you
and
could
then,
just do whatever you want. And then there's
yeah.
like, just interact, and then buying stuff online in a very early sense, having to enter your credit card details when they're almost certainly going to get stolen, um, and various other stuff. So there's that. And then I started gaming, online. And this was before any of the, consoles had modems. Or broadband capabilities. Broadband didn't even exist. It was like I had an ISDN line, internet like a digital line, but
Mm,
even then my ping was still like 200. It was like a digital line, but it didn't bring my ping down. But yeah, like I had a a decent 56k modem, a decent enough 56k modem that I could
mm.
play my games. And during that period, I really like started getting involved with the forums, and using internet relay chat to talk to other people online, and involved in very early internet-based communities,
Mm.
essentially, whereby I was able to have an online alias. I was able to either remain anonymous or not.
How fun is that
Um,
though? It sounds like the beginning of what NFTs are and our identities are right now, right?
well,
It's
it
funny, right? Because it's all started from those chats, like
yeah.
MSN. Remember MSN?
Oh yeah, I mean, like
The-
even before MSN, I was on like ICQ and an internet relay chat,
Mm,
IRC. I was on that for many years, even whilst MSN existed. And I used all of the very early platforms to talk with people across the world and engage with people and build communities, from online gaming to other stuff. And then my entire life has been basically spent online, where whether or not I've been a gamer, or I've been a writer, or I've been an NFT collector, or whatever. And I spent 15 years in social media strategy as a strategist, working for some of the biggest brands in the world. And I got a job as a copywriter, writing blog posts for an internet startup company, or a marketing startup company, back in 2006,
mm.
when Instagram didn't exist. YouTube was very early. There was no creator platform. Um, Twitter, I signed up to Twitter in 2007. I think I was in like the first million people to sign up to Twitter, something like this. It's like, and I know all the history of all of these platforms and the stories of them, because I've been, I used to go to San Francisco a couple of times a year to meet up with people who worked for Twitter, to see how we could use their platform for marketing purposes. And this is when I was in my like early 20s, and it was a very exciting time. So I've seen the whole evolution of Web 2 as well, and
Mm.
social media,
How
and
would you
where that
define Web 2 then? Is Web 2
well, the
where we
Web 2 is the
mostly where we are now, right? Kind of
yeah,
social
I mean,
media.
Web 2 is just essentially just meant the facility to interact on content. It's social media. It's rather, say you say Web 1 was media. You can go onto a website and you can look at it. Web 2 is social media, so it's like an expansion on, okay, there is content on a website now, and you can engage with that content in real time because of the technology that's been invented. Um, and the ability of HTML to expand, and PHP and all the other coding languages to build on the web. And that allowed you to then, as a consumer or as a person on the internet, to have a voice. And I remember very early meetings, marketing meetings that I used to be in with big brands. We were convincing them, as around any time between 2006 and 2010. I used to be walking into meetings with brands, big companies, all over the world, saying you should be on social media because at the time they didn't believe in social media. Nobody did. It wasn't an established marketing platform. And
But
at the
now,
time,
right? That's the best thing to do
well,
to
exactly.
advertise, right? It's crazy
Well, this
because
is what pretty
no
much
one will read
everybody's
anywhere
doing.
else. Yeah,
Yeah.
no
So
one's gonna read it anywhere else. Right?
this is
So
pretty much what companies are only doing now. So I've seen social media as mm, I guess, a platform, as a new technology, as a marketing kind of medium, and as a medium for creating content, go from
sorry, I just want to stop you there in a way. I want to ask your thoughts about Black Mirror. What do you think about that series? Because
I
that
well, I've never really watched Black Mirror,
have
because
you
I've
not?
heard no. A lot of people tell me, "Oh, Rich, you'd really love this," and I'm like, "No, I wouldn't," because I've lived through most of it, to be honest, and I find it slightly annoying to be reminded of it. Um, and
Sorry, go ahead.
which is true. So, like, with Web 2, I saw it go from nothing, where I'd have to be walking into meeting rooms and going to big kind of corporate marketing managers. Oh, this is the reason you should have a YouTube channel. This is the reason you should have Twitter. This is the reason why you should be on Facebook even, or Instagram when it came along,
Mm.
through to, oh shit, now we need this, and then following up, this is what our main marketing channels are. And then so that evolution went from zero to where it is now, a multi billion-dollar industry, with all of its problems, and it's got a lot of good stuff, but it's got a lot of problems as well. In the space of about 15 or 16 years. Now, I was very early to crypto, but I never bought any because I didn't really understand what it was. I was too heavily involved
Tell
in
me, how did you get started in crypto and NFTs, man?
well, like
I guess are we thresholding into Web3 now? I guess.
yeah, exactly. So it's just giving a bit of context in how, like, I went from Web 1 to Web 2 and now into Web 3, because I was aware of Bitcoin, I would say, as far back as maybe 2013, 14, something like this. I remember living in a place in London called Shoreditch, which is
Mm.
a renowned for being a very hipster
It
kind
is
of
hipster. Yeah.
hipster sort of area, and I was a hipster at the time, to be honest.
Mm, mm.
Um,
Y-
and
You are what
and
you are, man. You are what you are.
and I had the flannel shirt and everything. But yeah, I remember going into a cafe and seeing the Bitcoin symbol there, and they were taking Bitcoin for coffee. And
No
this is as far back as
way.
2013, 2014, something like
Oh, they
this.
were clever. I
And
hope they
yeah,
held
yeah,
on
yeah.
to. I hope they held on to it
Well,
because. But
don't.
that's the thing though. You get the Bitcoin, you get the crypto, but yeah, it depends if you held it. Shall we?
Exactly. And I was not smart enough to have bought some. And if I was smart enough to have bought some at that time, I
You would have
definitely would have
spent it.
sold it by now. But yeah, I was aware of it for a long time. And then in the 2016, 2017 sort of run up to the previous bull run, I started getting a bit more interested in it because I'd seen the symbols around before and I was aware of what was going on. I was seeing a lot of chatter online about it. So I decided, just through an exchange, to buy some. And then I was like, oh shit. And I was buying it on the run up to the last bull run, late 2017. I was buying ETH and Bitcoin. And then I basically ended up buying the top with pretty much all of my life savings at the
Oh
time.
no.
And then it just, during January, February 2018, obviously, boom, straight back down again.
Mm.
And then plateaued, had the bear market for a couple of years. I never sold anything because I was quite interested in what the technology was, and also I'd lost 90% of the worth. So I was like, well, what's the point in selling? Maybe it'll come
That
back someday.
that a
Uh,
good time to double down. This is the thing, right? When you buy the dip, you just never know if it's gonna keep dipping. That's the problem
Yeah.
right now, right?
Well, like at that point, I didn't have any money to buy the dip, so I just
Right.
I just held. Basically, I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
"Hell,
yeah, yeah. It's
fuck
the
it,
best thing you can
I'm
do.
holding," and then during,
Huggle. Is this like
yeah,
bear? Is this bear market? Is bear market wisdom? Is it? Galbraith.
well,
It's just what this is about. I
I've
think
gone,
my audience is gonna experience that, like, love that, because
yeah,
a lot of the
we're in
big
it.
IP NFTs are, yeah, on the -90 right now.
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
it's if you survived 2017, 2018, then you're considered an OG. But now, if you survived 2022 and 2023, I think you're pretty OG as well, because it's been pretty hardcore. Um,
the
the
second OG.
second, yeah. So I held, and I was, remained cognizant and aware of Bitcoin and Ethereum and what was a little bit of what was going on there. Part of me just wanted to forget about it because I was like, fuck, I lost all my money. This is, part of me was like, this is a bullshit con, whatever. But there
Mm,
was another part of me, the science fiction writer, the futurologist, the
mm,
tech geek, who was very much like, no, there's actually something to this. This could be really interesting. I need to read up a bit more about it. I need to understand more about it. I need to get into the technology more, rather than just taking a bet on a coin. I need to understand what's the underlying technology here. And that started to happen around 2020, when I started to hear about NFTs. And I was like, just, in the meantime, to get a bit of context, as a writer, I'd been doing a lot of collaborative work um, with artists and musicians, and that gradually progressed into me doing collaborative work with digital artists, because digital artists were utilizing social media platforms to try and build their audiences, which would then facilitate them perhaps getting, a cool job or being able to sell some prints or whatever. And then you can hopefully see where this kind of trail is leading now, because these digital artists, these early digital artists who are utilizing online media and online platforms to try and generate an audience for their work, were very much reliant on the platforms themselves to try and earn a couple of dollars out of their amazing work.
But I
And
guess
then,
it's no different than if you were peddling on the street with your artwork, right? Almost.
well, it was different because prior to NFTs and prior to the advent of NFTs and smart contracts, you couldn't digitally sign a JPEG.
Mm,
A JPEG is still infinitely replicable. An NFT isn't. It's immutable. It's on the ledger. There's only one of those,
mm.
and if you have that NFT in your crypto wallet, then you
It's
own
all
that
yours.
piece.
Yeah.
Then that's yours. So
Yeah.
essentially, the way I got into it then during 2020
Your
was
wallet, your keys. Sorry,
yeah,
it's a, it's
exactly.
it's it's a thing people are screaming these days. But
I was, I got very interested in it very quickly because I was able to very quickly understand that, and this is the easiest way into it, I believe, at least this is the way I describe it to a lot of friends and family. You're able to create provenance on digital artwork, which was never doable before. You were able to prove who owned a piece of digital artwork or a digital asset of any form, really, that you can ascribe an NFT to, without which was never possible before. You had you were on, say you're on Instagram or DeviantArt or ArtSpace or whatever, and you put a piece of artwork up there and you said, "This is mine." Then people could just lift it and print it, and people can still lift things and print things these days. That's always been possible, but now you're able to put that digital signature on something that allows you to say, "This
mm,
is mine and I own it." And you
mm,
can take the JPEG and make prints off it if you want. Some people do that shit, but
mm,
I know that I have the original here, which is the
mm,
same as like owning an original Rothko or an original Pollock or an original, anybody. It's the signature and the provenance that's able to be facilitated via the blockchain, which I found fascinating. So,
mm. My
so
God,
then I
yeah.
go on.
I just want to touch upon that because I was on June, which was written, yeah, 20 years ago or whatever, and they talked about this cyborg, well, this AI entity. This is crazy, right? This book was written,
June was written a long time ago, 40 or 50 years ago at least.
yeah, okay. Well, maybe the latest one isn't so bad, but
Oh no,
um,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, but if you see it, like, but the concepts of it. So this, there was like they call it the Betlayer Jihad or whatever, which is the first. They always like refer that even like years ago. They're basically sentient machines, and there
yeah,
was this scene. So I'm just gonna spoil this one scene. Like last night, I was listening to. It's exactly what you're talking about, right? They were saying how they had a star. This is really great because Vincent Van Gogh's Starry Night NFT just got released recently. And he was talking about he had the Starry Night photo, like original painting, and he said that this AI machine went into the room, despite obviously he has all the power, so the other one was a captive. So they took the painting and he said, I remember doing something really similar to this. Like I copied the same painting brushstroke per brushstroke. Like the molecular structure of this painting is the same, and I
mm,
copied it, and it looks exactly the same. And they talked about how maybe this is the second original. So that's what the machine said, and and then the person behind it was like, there is no second original. There is only one.
yeah,
There is only one. And obviously the machine destroyed that original. And then obviously that was just a sign of like, being a villain in that story. But
mhm,
to me that blows my mind because that is the exact concept of an NFT, right? Like like once you create one, this is it. Like, that's the original. Unless obviously there's multiple, but then each NFT is unique anyway, even if it's
Exactly. Yeah.
multiple copies. So
Yeah. It's the
crazy.
idea. So that's kind of how I got into the Web3 space, and I'd done a bit of a collaboration with Beeple in 2018, where I was writing sci-fi stories based on his work. And when he started selling NFTs in late 2020, I kind of was able to message him on Instagram and just say, "Hey man, like, what
Beeple's
is
pretty
this?"
big, man.
Yeah. I was able to ask him what it was and why he was selling JPEGs for so much money. And he was like, dude, this is like, seriously, it's the future. Get some. So I started buying early digital artwork then, like in 2020. And I didn't still at that moment quite get the significance of what was about to happen. But luckily, I was early enough to pick up a few really nice pieces and then sell them on so I could buy my Cryptopunk and do various other stuff in the space. So,
Yeah,
now.
talk to me about that, because that is like the legend right now, right? I mean, it's not even listed anymore. I mean, I, I just want to quickly touch upon it, obviously not dwell too long, but to
Yep.
me it's like, so did Yuga buy out CryptoPunk then? So did you get given that ape afterwards, or what was the?
No.
Oh, sorry. Oh, no, no. Did you buy the ape? Sorry.
Yeah,
Go
of
ahead.
course. Yeah. Um, yeah.
Imagine
So
though.
like
Imagine you got given an ape. You're like, yeah, thank you.
no, I I worked on some early NFT projects within the space and was able to earn enough ETH to buy my punk, which at the time I think was 23 ETH or about $70,000, which is like the craziest, most expensive thing I'd ever bought in my life up
Mm.
until that point. Um, After that, not long after that, actually, I bought the ape at around 1 ETH.
Oh my God. Can we do
Um,
that? Can we rewind time and and
so yeah, I got my ape at I think it was like $1,800, something like this, which is quite nice. Um, and it wasn't like
best, is that the best decision you've ever made kind of thing?
one of the best. Well, I mean, that's what I was going to say. It was like it wasn't really a strategic buy, because like we talked about, I'm not a big collector, and I'm
No, no,
certainly
no.
not like a day trader or a.
Mm,
I'm a creative. I'm an artist in the space, and I know a lot of creatives and artists do collect and day trade as well, and I do a little bit of that, but not a huge amount. So like buying the CryptoPunk was very much a strategic decision because it was extremely expensive, and I'd never really
mm,
thought about buying a piece of digital art for that much money before. But I was like, I want to commit to this space. I want to show people that I am committed to this space, and I want to wear my kind of heart on my sleeve. And the best way of doing that is by owning a punk. And that also kind of facilitates a bunch of other stuff, because when you're a punk you get to talk to a lot of other punks, and they're all very interesting and smart people as well. So that's like a really nice community to be a part of. But with
see
the
that?
ape,
Yeah.
sorry, go on.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead. No,
No,
don't
I
let
was just
me.
going to say, like with the ape, that wasn't a strategic decision. That was, oh, that looks kind of cool. I'll
Oh,
buy one.
damn it. Oh, where was my heads
So,
up? Oh, why didn't I know you then?
so
And that wasn't
I
so long ago, right? That was, when was that? That was,
well, I mean,
was that
that
2 years
was
ago? Or a year ago?
May,
2 years ago?
yeah, nearly 2 years ago,
Twenty-one, right?
May 21. Yeah, so I got mine like a couple of months after they dropped,
But
maybe a month or so after they
you must
dropped.
have been
Something like
tipped
that.
by the CryptoPunks. No, you must have been tipped,
No,
or
there was no tip. There was
no,
no there
no
was
way.
no nobody knew what was going to happen. It wasn't
Oh,
like people had any inside information or any knowledge. It was
mm,
just it was a combination of hype and FOMO, which
mm,
really drove Ape's floor up very high. But then also Yuga Labs being very, very smart and utilizing lots of different, very kind of clever marketing techniques to raise the profile of apes, basically.
mm,
And through that, they didn't do any stupid shit with the money that they made. They continuously reinvested that into their own ecosystem and kept building on it. And they're extremely smart business people. And there wasn't any, when I bought my ape at $1,800, nobody knew what was going to happen. Nobody was saying, oh, these are going to go to 100. People were just like, oh, the art's pretty cool. They've got a cool team, much like happens with a bunch of other projects and still happens to this day with other projects. But a confluence of events basically led to obviously apes being and Yuga Labs being where they are today, which is been pretty amazing to be a part of. Having both an ape and a punk is like, it's been life changing for me for many different reasons, from creative to financial and all sorts. So yeah, it's been a pretty wild journey, but coming back to where we were and like going from Web 1 to Web 2 to now Web 3, and really kind of answering your original question, I don't
Yeah.
necessarily think that like, oh, Web 3 is about making money, bro, or anything like that. That's not really
Oh,
my
sorry.
bag.
Okay. So this is my question then, because I obviously, like, I see a lot of sense in NFTs. And when big IP NFTs came, it's like, okay, people are collecting a nostalgia, a lot of emphasis on first appearances and all these platforms. But to me, crypto has always been, apart from like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and obviously some use cases like Matic and everything else, like layer twos and stuff like that. But to me, crypto has been one of those like I'm wary of, because it really goes through a lot of pump and dumps. Because I guess it's a currency that people trade with a lot, like and there's been some mad swings. What's your thoughts on that? And and I'm just gonna talk about decentralization quickly, because we're coming from a centralized platform, and there's been a lot of screams. And then obviously people like companies like DC, Marvel, or VV, like they're like, you know they're centralized. It's easier because I guess a regular person, I guess we're talking mass adoption now, would just walk in there and they just want to buy something that they know, but then not necessarily want to set up a wallet or learn, like, the hazards of being decentralized and stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess I've thrown a bunch of stuff to you there. What are your thoughts on crypto and decentralization in that sense? And quickly.
Yeah, I mean, like we're entering the era of Web 3 now. Whether you like it or not, it's pretty much here now, and it's only going to grow more pervasive from this point on. Like I was saying, I'm able to put it in a certain amount of context within my own head, because I saw all the same stuff happening with Web 2, and I
Mm,
saw people going, why would I want to be on YouTube? Why would I want to upload pictures of myself onto Instagram? It doesn't make any sense. What's a selfie? What's an influencer? Why would I want to be making videos about my hobby and then sharing them with other people? All of this sort of stuff was like completely foreign to everybody 15 years ago, 20
mm.
years ago. And now it's rise and grind. I'm a content creator, I'm an influencer, I'm uploading my life continuously to various platforms, I'm sharing everything that I possibly can to try and become an influencer or earn extra money via social media platforms and being a content creator, which is a really cool job, and blah blah blah. So
Mm.
we're really at an inflection point with crypto and with Web3 as well, because we've had the first kind of wave of the first 10 years or so where people have been going, what the fuck is this? Does it make any sense? It's too hard to get into. It's, only real fucking nerds are into it, and blah, blah, blah. And now we're at a point where, especially over the last 2 or 3 years with the last bull run, it's been like, okay, maybe this does make some sense. Maybe there are some real life use cases. Maybe I can collect or build up a portfolio of coins, and that will then facilitate my generation, the creation of generational wealth in some cases, if you're that way inclined, or in other cases, I can build interesting technology on top of this, which will facilitate amazing art, or community building, or a bunch of other stuff.
So
So the use cases are kind of starting to build up and come through. And obviously, there's still quite a lot of barriers to entry for the average person. But there was massive barriers to entry for the average person to upload a YouTube video 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It wasn't easy to get a high quality, high end piece of content onto the internet. Not even that long ago, when you think about it in the grand scheme of things. Before YouTube existed, hosting a video on a website was next to impossible if you didn't have like some understanding of FTPs and HTML and website building and various other stuff. And now there's like a billion hours of video uploaded every day. So where are we going to be in another? It's like all of this stuff. It's always zoom out. Where are
Yeah,
we going to
it's
be in another 10
yeah,
years? You know.
exactly. Well, actually, well, the immediate threat, in my opinion, is it is AI, man. It is scary as shit to me. Like where do we go from there when machines become self-sentient, or where does it stop where you could pull up in your local game, and then suddenly your NPC is suddenly a real sentient being? Like, it's one of those things where how do we,
Well, I
you
mean,
know,
like we're
nah,
talking quite far future with that sort of stuff. AGI and like artificial consciousness is still quite a way off.
okay.
And as an avid sci-fi reader and as a fan of philosophy and as a avid sci-fi
You say
writer,
AGI. Oh my gosh.
AGI is artificial general intelligence, which is generally what people mean when they say like smart AI or conscious AI. Um, so there's this idea, it's been the idea of a smart computer or a computer which can fool you into thinking that it's human has been around for a very very long time. And there's been all sorts of tests and created to try and surpass for previous programs and algorithms to try and surpass. We're basically at that point now where we're surpassing these tests, and these programs and algorithms are becoming about as smart as humans in many regards, at like passing, for instance, again, passing tests or doing coding or mathematics and things like this. But they lack the nuance of human consciousness. And when we have like a
Mm,
conscious AI, that's the singularity essentially. And when we pass through that singularity, things will be very different. But
and
it's
then
it's
like,
ba-
and you think like
basically
what
impossible to
rice.
speculate on that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things where, yeah,
My
there,
personal take is that if there was an artificial consciousness, we'd have it'd either be extremely exciting or extremely worrying. It
well,
because
imagine
it would
it'll
be
be,
it,
imagine though, it'll be a baby though, right? To begin with, it
well,
won't be like
it
it.
might be a baby for a microsecond. It'd be very very smart for it, and it'd be smarter than us, and it would surpass into super intelligence within seconds, if not nanoseconds.
Oh
And it
god.
and it would and it would either immediately kill itself, because it would understand the futility of existence, and there is nothing that can be done about entropy, and it would turn itself off. It'd say, "Why? What? There's no point in existing. This is futile." So it either commit suicide, which is quite scary in itself, because if you have this super intelligence that kills itself, then you'll have to think, well, what the fuck are we supposed to do? But then on the other hand, it might keep itself alive and might say, well, actually, I figured a way out for us to live forever and to surpass entropy, and to I understand everything that has ever been and everything that will ever will be. I see time differently from you, and I can help you become better through my own intelligence. I don't necessarily subscribe to the doomsday kind of grey goo
Mm.
events. There is a chance that might happen, but I'm a optimist when it comes to AI.
Yeah, I get the sense of that. It's like when you told me you didn't want to touch Black Mirror because what's the point in dwelling in the negatives, right? Because if everyone's gonna die, then what's the whole point?
I mean, and like I said, I lived through a lot of Black Mirror shit in real life, so I was a bit like, I don't need to be to be watching a TV show about this. This is not, a lot of people watch Black Mirror and go, "Wow, what a cool and interesting idea," and I'm like, "Well, it's either been done before in a book, or I've been aware of it through my work for 15 years in social media and interactions on the internet." Anyway, a lot of the ideas for the episodes got pulled from stuff which came from the internet originally, and
Well,
Charlie Broker and the writers are all really smart for doing that, but it wasn't something that I felt particularly compelled to watch.
no, 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 no. I mean, I guess it's one of those things. It's like, yeah, but it's funny, right? Because you have that Twitter persona when and now meeting you, it's kind of like I'm finding a lot of like similarities between you and me, how we approach things in a slightly positive manner. because we've been through so much shit in life personally. Like we just go, okay, I'm not gonna be able to like do anything here except sit and cry. We might as well we might as well move on. But look,
Yeah.
guys, to my viewers, I know we're crossing that threshold, but it seems like Mr. Galbraith here is not just a science fiction writer, but really you're getting the pulse of what people want to achieve, right? And then you kind of write from there. Is that sort of the things you've been doing? I guess a lot of the science fiction projects are trying to hit different things and achieve different things, right? I mean,
Yeah, I
I
mean, at my base, I'm a storyteller. I always just like telling stories, even from when I was a kid, before I really knew how to write properly. And my advent and progression into Web3 and NFTs from Web2 has just allowed me to tell more stories. And actually, for the first time, really earn some money from it and earn enough money from it to
mm,
become a professional storyteller.
that's the funny thing, right? Because there's a new era right now of even like how crypto is, and how the like when they say the government prints money, and then you see crypto like Bitcoin and Ethereum having a finite supply. It's starting to make sense that way in small amounts. I still am a bit wary of how the swings. I just feel like it's just
It's
so
still a very
wild.
volatile place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so wild. But look, for me, I would say, guys, like, thank you so much. I would say, do you have any closing thoughts as to where we are gonna go? Is there such a thing as Web 4? I guess you told me about AI, and don't worry too much about it. Um, uh, but like, how do people get in contact with you? Let's just do a quick scroll of
Yeah.
I
So I
guess
mean,
some
like,
of the sites that you have.
if anybody wants to, chat, my DMs are generally always open.
Yep. So
I'm,
you've got
Ric
the Twitter.
Galbraith on my Twitter. Please, follow and have a chat with me if you like.
Yep.
Ask me
Give me a
about
follow.
storytelling and various other stuff.
There's a lot
Um,
to go through, right? We didn't get the chance to get through. Maybe, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, if there's anything you want to show, like, quickly for 2 minutes, it's up to you.
I mean, like, there's loads of stuff there. If people want to find stuff out about me, then they can. I've a bit, like I said, I've been writing for 20 odd years, and I've got content online dating back at least 19 years, maybe 20 years as well. So yeah, it's we couldn't possibly go through anything unless we had another couple of hours. But yeah,
Mm,
I would just say, if you go onto my Twitter, you can get all my links from my profile on there, and you can have a look around and a click around and see the various projects that I'm involved with, from like punk fiction to the stuff that I'm doing with Yuga Labs and
mm.
Tales from the Glitch, Shroom Heads, all of that sort of cool stuff. So yeah, and like I said, I'm always happy to talk to people, and I like engaging and chatting away, especially when it comes to storytelling. So yeah, hopefully what I said today made a little bit of sense to the people who are viewing, and was of some interest. And I'll sign off there.
No, thank you so much. And look, it's such a hugely vast topic, and I'm glad to have picked your brain here and there. I think, yeah, it's really interesting to hear about the different, even the subcultures of comes from the cyberpunk world, and how it actually relates to a lot of our mutual experiences. So that was insane. Hey, thank you so much for giving me an hour and a half of your time, and hopefully I'll be able to pick your brain and more in the future, and hopefully I'll be able to see you on some of the Broadside raves in the spaces at
Yeah.
some point. Just have a peek through. I know you're a very busy man, but yeah, no, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh,
It's
awesome.
lovely to meet you, but yeah, everybody give him a follow. And yeah, we'll go from there.
Very
Thank
welcome.
you so
Thanks for having me,
much.
man.
Thanks
Cheers,
so
man.
much, man.
Bye.